Good afternoon, everyone. It's Tom Kissack back again to talk about Jonathan's Tales as a tool for learning the English language. As you see today, we have a slide which is referencing note 3 in the Parrot and the Woodpecker, Old Salt. So I will start to review Jonathan Tales notation. Just to remember what our main focus is, I show the second slide again, principally as we are to review the 78 idioms, phrases, sayings, and proverbs which enrich the epic tale, The Parrot and the Woodpecker. Today, at last, we'll delve into the book. So, the idioms I will review today, and some are taken from the book, the notes, and others arise from the video narration. So, we have Old Salt, Au contraire, in one's sights, worth a bob or two to get one's just rewards. Weltanschauung, one's bread and butter. In a nutshell, to risk life and limb. So, let us turn to the aforementioned Note 3, Old Salt, that has been patiently awaiting our attention. We might be forgiven for thinking, as I alluded to previously, I'm engaging the reader in some culinary exposition. But au contraire, as the French across the Channel say, and in some circles in England too. Here is the associated narrative text for Note 3, drawn from the book. And I will employ this method from now on. First the narrative, and then look at the notation. This terrible bunch of bastardly old salts had a current focus of ransacking all around the West Indies, looking for treasure. All salts. The notation at the bookend describes this, what for many will be an unfamiliar noun, someone who has sailed for an extraordinary long time. So logically, we might deduce that all salt is a nautical term, and a connection with the sea may now be crystal clear. The sea is very salty, of course. All is at last given due perspicacity. What a lovely word, meaning insight. We have insight into the old salt. Here's we have a couple of other examples of old salt. I'll read them out. As an old salt, Captain Jenkins regaled the crew with tales of his many adventures at sea, each story more incredible than the last. With his weather-beaten face and sturdy demeanour, he was the quintessential old salt, having spent decades navigating the rough waters. And we mustn't bypass the literary French gem I used, au contraire, explained on the slide showing now. There is actually absolutely nothing wrong with peppering your conversation in English with various foreign words and phrases, French being one specifically. And there is a solid reason why French has its roots in the English language. At one time, perhaps 1,000 years or more back, the English royal court and nobility, post William the Conqueror's victory over the English King Harold in 1066, they all spoke French. Using these terms does give a bit of flavour and historical dash to your conversation, don't you think? Slide 7 offers a couple more examples of using au contraire, and you can have a look at those at your leisure. So moving on to the notation 6, the narrative introduces the phrase in one's sight. The sentence associated with this text and this specific idiom also includes other numbered notations. For example, note 7, referring to the phrase a bob or two. And note 8 introduces the words just rewards. Excuse me. So I will deal with each one in turn. But firstly, the book narrative. Everything was in their sights. Literally anything worth a bob or two they prized and would stop at nothing to seize what they deemed pirates' just rewards. As you might deduce at this early stage, we're dealing with, amongst other things, pirates. And if you read the whole story, you would be right. So back to the idioms. In one site is reviewed, as you see, being the focus of one's attention and desire for possession of achievement. So there's a reasonable clarity in respect to the pirates' desire for anything they could get their hands on. We see here a couple more examples of in one sight. You actually read them out. The player manoeuvred through the defenders with skill, keeping the goal in his sights as he prepared for the shot. After years of hard work, the dream of owning a home is finally for me in my sights. So the next slide shows notation 7, and I do really love this colloquial phrase, worth a bob or two or pot for a bob or two. This phrase actually supports the idea pirates' indiscriminate greedy desire to purloin anything of worth. Bob or two is almost archaic in its saying. Let's see what the review at the book's end says about it. Bob is an old British slang for a shilling. To cost a bob or two means to cost quite a bit of money. Students of English language, can you imagine stunning your audience employing such a phrase in everyday conversation? There's a couple more examples of worth a bob or two. I'd love to go out for a dinner, but it costs a bob or two at that new restaurant. She wanted to buy that beautiful scarf, but she noticed it cost a bob or two. So the third notation on this sentence, note 8, refers to a phrase, just rewards. Explanation of this tells the reader the more about a pirate's mentality and his Weltanschauung, to coin a delightful German phrase. The review says of just desserts, a deserved outcome or result. So we see in the phrases associated with this that stealing and pillaging for a pilot is his, to employ another idiom, illegal bread and butter. Just rewards, if you will. We can see a couple more examples of just rewards, which I'll allow you to read at your own leisure. This particular slide considers or reviews the word Weltanschauung, which really is, if you mull over the meaning, in a nutshell, it's worldview of a pirate's mindset. Excuse me. This next slide engages with you on the idiom one's bread and butter. Bread and butter refers to something fundamental or essential, especially in terms of likely income. And slide 16 is another couple of examples of bread and butter. Before I skip to notation 9, do have a look at the description of the phrase I use in a nutshell from the narration. In a nutshell means to express something concisely in a few words or to give a brief summary of something. And you also have a couple more examples of in a nutshell. So the final notation today, note 9, to risk life and limb. So let us round up this day with a look at this phrase, introducing the narrative text as follows. In such pursuits, they regularly risk life and limb, but lo and behold, anyone crossing them. All before them were terrorized without mercy, absolutely everyone they met. The slide gives due explanation to the phrase risk life and limb, mirrored at the notes explanation of the book's end. If someone risks life and limb, they do something very dangerous. Well, pirates are very dangerous. It may cause them to die or be seriously injured. You can see here a couple more examples to risk life and limb. The firefighters bravely chose to risk life and limb to save the family trapped in the burning building. Volunteers often risk life and limb to help those affected by the natural disasters. I will begin next time by reviewing Note 10 in the epic tale The Parrot and the Woodpecker, specifically the idiom, lo and behold, and following that to cross somebody. Well, there are more fish to fry next week. Fish to fry was an idiom I reviewed in the introductory videos. So we can look forward to delving into phrases like sick to one's back teeth, running pell-mell, and a person acting in blind terror, all literary gems to be included in your future conversational arsenal. Until then, next week that is, goodbye, and do have a fabulous, fruitful, and rewarding time until then.